Are you a teacher who loves your job but gets drained quickly by people, ironically? If so, this video is for you. So, teaching is an inherently social occupation, right? And a lot of times for those of us that are introverts, that leaves us drained at the end of the school day. So, what do you do if you also need a side hustle to make some extra cash? That's what I'm here to talk about today. So these are some quieter, lower interaction side hustles that don't require you to be constantly on like you are all day, every day at school, right? So why do introverted teachers need different side hustles? Well, teaching already pretty much drains your social battery, right? And at the end of the day, a lot of times you probably just want to sit on the couch and stare at a wall. Um, And there are side hustles that you probably have heard people talk about that kind of scare you off because, quite frankly, you'd be dealing with way too many people. Like, let's take the example of bartending. I mean, come on, right? That's a lot of people to deal with. So, but if you want something else that's, less interactive with people, it doesn't mean that you're lazy or unmotivated. Just like if you have ADHD, it doesn't mean that you're lazy or unmotivated. It just means that your brain is wired a bit differently than some of your peers, perhaps. Um, and so, but you still need to be able to earn some extra cash. So we want to find things that you can do that won't add to your emotional exhaustion. So, what makes a side hustle good for an introvert? And of course, these are all different for different people. Everybody's different. So take what works for you and leave the rest. As they say, take what works and make it work for you. Um, but in general, minimal live interaction, like probably not bartending, on a Saturday night, like at a super busy restaurant. I don't know. Um, let's see, you might enjoy more asynchronous or self-paced work in general. You might like clear tasks that have a beginning and an end, especially if you're feeling overwhelmed with school already. You don't want something that's going to add on to your stress levels. So you want something that's kind of like finite that you can kind of commit to this time and not necessarily promise that you're going to do this thing, for the long term until you decide if it works for you. And then you might also want something that you could do working more alone or at home or, again, in like shorter time frames. So selling teacher resources online, that's a, pretty quiet side hustle. You build a product and put in the work at the beginning and then, eventually it sells itself, which is pretty cool. Freelance writing or editing, you're not necessarily having to commit to a lot of meetings, and you get to, focus your creative energies on making something flow better. You might want to be a virtual assistant where you support somebody by doing kind of like behind the scenes work, with like scheduling their meetings, watching out for double bookings, handling, meeting scheduling or reservations or, that kind of thing. Working in Canva for them, organizing their files, that kind of thing. You could also consider teaching English online, which, you're interacting with very few students in comparison to what you're probably used to. And it's online and it's, one to one and very structured if you're going with a company at the beginning, where they usually will provide you with a curriculum too. So that's something to think about. Creating digital products, printables, and template. When you're selling planners, trackers, routines, spreadsheets, lesson plans, templates, like you name it. You are not having to interact uh, live with an audience. And so that, that takes some of that social pressure off. Um, and then YouTube and blogging, uh, those are other examples of more asynchronous work. Blogging does do better with YouTube support, but you are, you know, less in front of people, perhaps, depending. Some side hustles that introverts might regret would be something like working for a call center, um, like being online on several Zoom meetings. You probably have to do that or had to do it during COVID shutdown. You might have to do it now. Um, you don't want somebody to be able to like message you at all hours of the day, or getting into a situation where you feel like you're still having to like manage somebody else's behavior. um and because you do that enough, I'm sure. And just, yeah, just watching out for things that kind of start making you like dread the idea of logging in. That's You don't want to get stuck with something like that. So how to start without overwhelm? So you just want to start, small, start slow. Commit to maybe 1 hour per week, 2 hours per week. Choose one of these ideas, not all of them. And think about using templates and repeatable systems that'll kind of help you streamline your workflow. And think about ways that you can put boundaries on your time, protecting your quiet time, um, so that you still have that time to decompress that introverts need. If you'd like some help in choosing something that fits you and your energy, I made a side hustle map, starter map for teachers for you to go through and answer some questions about your energy and your interests and how fast you need to make cash. So it can help you get pointed in the right direction. So definitely check that out. And again, just pick one of these that seems, lower pressure to you, and try it out a few times and see what you think. But, intro nights, even though, the world is, seems to be full of extroverts, and, but, we introverts, because I count myself among them, uh, we, we rock, right? And we deserve side hustle money too. So we can do it. Find something that works for you and give it a shot. All right. Talk to you later. Bye.